Tennessee WildCast is live on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. It's TWRA's podcast, and we want to welcome you all and thank you for joining in. If you're watching on Facebook, thanks for being there and watching live on Facebook. And got a pretty interesting show for you today, and I want to hit a few current events and some things I want just to let you know about before we jump into that. But CWD is the topic for today, chronic wasting disease. But before we hit that, I want to let you know a few things. The hunting guide is out, and it's should be in your Walmarts. It's online. Any licensed agent, you can pick them up. But what's new this year in the hunting guide is on page 6. That's a good place to start. See what all you're going to need to catch yourself up on as far as the new stuff this year. What we're going to be talking about today, CWD, is on page 30. So that's a good page to go to and learn about those restrictions, and we'll talk more about that today. And then on page 31, check-in procedures. That's a big one. You can check them in online, check in your deer, your big game, and stuff like that online now. You can check it in at your license agent and through the app. So check out that page. That's a good place to refresh on that. Also, September 4th, 5th, and 6th, we're going to be hosting some public meetings regarding deer management in Tennessee, and we're looking to evaluate and improve our deer management plan, and we want your input. So these meetings are going to be held across the state, one in West Tennessee on September 4th, and Middle Tennessee on September 5th, and then East Tennessee September 6th, and that's going to be Jackson, Murfreesboro, Knoxville, and those locations can be found on our website, tnwildlife.org. Under the newsroom, there's a press release there that lists all those locations and the times. They're all 7 to 9, but the list of locations and the address is there, so you can make sure you can get the address plugged into GPS and get there if you're interested. We'll also have some stuff on Facebook and letting you know about that and updating you on that as information comes out. Last thing we want to hit on is TWRA leasing dove fields. We're leasing dove fields again this year. We do that every year. Dove season starts September 1st. But if you're a landowner and you've got a field you think you might want to lease, we'll come out and look at it. We'll try to get those all done before the end of August because the season starts September 1st. So if you got a dove field, if you're a landowner, call one of the TWRA offices, and we'll get a biologist out there to check it out. And if you want to know where those fields are located, tnwildlife.org, the homepage, there's a block there that says dove fields. Click that, scroll down a little bit, there's a map, and that'll show you what we have so far, and we'll be adding to that map throughout the month of August. So, real excited about today's show. Not excited about the disease that we're trying to stop or keep from coming to Tennessee, but excited about the guys we're going to be talking to today, and they're going to catch y'all up on this CWD. So I'm going to pan out. Let's see. Let's go to camera 1. How's that? And you'll see us here, Mr. Greg Wathen out there on the end. Thank you, Greg, for being here.
Thank you, Jason. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And then Dr. Daniel Grove is here with me in the middle.
Thanks, Jason.
Dr. Daniel is a new employee for the agency, and it's kind of a shared position, I think, and you can help me elaborate on that. But he's our new veterinarian. And tell us a little bit about what a veterinarian will be doing for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency and how the position is kind of shared.
Yeah, the position's actually structured where I'm actually an extension assistant professor of wildlife health with the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
And so TWRA is funding the position through the university, and that just kind of strengthens the relationship with the university and opens up potential research opportunities and things like that with regards to wildlife health or anything else that the university and TWRA thinks needs to be done in terms of research. With regards to what a wildlife veterinarian does, it's a little bit of everything. It's everything from actual disease work, like what we're talking about here today with chronic wasting disease, all the way to dealing with the politics of legislatively trying to figure out what's best to prevent disease from coming into populations here in the state of Tennessee. In terms of everything in between, it's a little bit of pathology, looking at stuff, figuring out why it died, and is it going to actually impact wildlife populations as a whole, or was it just that individual animal that happened to succumb to that particular disease? So, just the concept of wildlife and health in general is one portion of a larger concept of One Health, where it involves wildlife health, human health, environmental health, and domestic animal health, and the interplay of all those things. And so, as a veterinarian, kind of act as a in between with all the other aspects, whether it be domestic animal, human health, and then the wildlife health side of things.
Awesome. So, what brought you to Tennessee, or you may have been born here? I don't know. You may be a native, but what brought you to Tennessee, and what's your background? Where'd you go to school?
Actually, I grew up in Knoxville area. We moved there when I was about 2 years old, and grew up in the Knoxville area. Went to Farragut High School, for those out there who might have heard of Farragut. Then I did my undergrad in animal science at the University of Tennessee, and then I did my veterinary degree at the University of Tennessee also.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're with us, and we appreciate you joining us today for the show. Looking forward to working with you, and looking forward to talking a little bit more about this chronic wasting disease today. But want to meet Greg Wathen. He's been with the agency for quite a while. How long have you been with the agency, Greg?
31 years.
31 years.
Yeah, started in 1987 as a deer biologist for the state, and so just been here in Nashville, the Nashville office, ever since then.
Yeah, you've been chief of wildlife once.
Yeah, I've had several jobs in the agency. It's been deer biologist, and then assistant chief of the wildlife division. I went down and worked for the director's office as a special assistant for a few years, and then I was chief of wildlife. And then for a number of years, I was working in landscape conservation for a large collaborative organization, just till recently. And then I'm back to being sort of a special assistant to the director right now. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here and appreciate your hard work. But let's jump into CWD, and let's first define it. What is CWD? What is chronic wasting disease? And either one of you can jump in, whoever wants to. But let's.
I'm gonna let the vet take that.
Okay.
one.
All right.
Chronic wasting disease is in a class of organisms called transmissible spongiform encephalopathies.
Can you say that one more time?
We'll call them TSEs.
TSEs, okay. All right.
They're actually prions, and prions are not viruses, bacteria, fungus, parasites, anything like that. It's a separate class of organism per se. It's actually a misfolded protein that would be normally in the body, and because it's misfolded, that's actually what causes the clinical signs that we would see in an animal. And it's able to cause the body to reproduce it. And so basically they're an infectious protein is the easiest way to explain it. And basically it has a predilection for the brain and for neurologic tissue. And so a lot of the clinical signs that we see are associated with as that disease progresses in the brain.
Mm-hmm. So it pretty much eats the brain away, I guess.
Yep, and actually the spongiform encephalopathy part, if you take a look at it under a microscope after the disease has affected a brain, it looks like a giant sponge. There's a bunch of holes everywhere where there should be brain matter, and there's just nothing left.
And do we know what causes it? What affects these animals and how it gets it, causes these problems?
It gets into the body most likely through the oral transmission route. Either through mutual grooming or through eating at a shared feed site, or any number of ways. During hunting season, it could be, I should say rut, not during hunting season, but during rut, at scrape sites and things like that, where other animals have marked and come in contact with the infectious protein that way. It is shed urine and feces and saliva and things like that. Pretty much every bodily fluid in every part of the body it can be found. In terms of what it actually, the clinical signs that you might see, chronic wasting disease, unfortunately, is a nondescript way to describe probably 100 different diseases, but it happens to have stuck with this particular one. Essentially, the animals, because of their neurologic impairments, they stop eating, drinking normally. They essentially waste away. And you'll see a really thin animal with poor hair coat in the later stages of the disease. But, it could take anywhere from 10 to 18 months to become clinical after infection. So it's a long, slowly progressing disease.
Wow.
They don't ever survive it.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% fatal in all the animals that get it. So
And we've got a video on our YouTube channel, on our website that Barry Cross put together for us, talking about chronic wasting disease and trying to educate folks to just educate them on it. And we got 100% fatal. That's on the first slide, one of the first slides you see. So one thing that people always maybe mistake, or not always, but sometimes mistake blue tongue or EHD. They hear these things and they think it's chronic wasting, or vice versa. How does that compare? Is blue tongue the same as chronic wasting?
No, blue tongue and EHD, and I think some of the confusion comes because there's so many initials that we throw around out there.
Right. You got me confused today with some of those terms.
That's just the nature of the business, in terms of EHD and blue tongue virus, so it's actually epizootic hemorrhagic disease is the disease you're referring to, and that's actually a part of a larger group of viruses that cause hemorrhagic disease. So EHD and blue tongue cause the same clinical signs. They're distinct viruses. Whenever you do your tests on them, they are very distinct things. But the clinical signs in the animal are going to be the same. You're going to see the ulceration in the oral cavity, acute death sometimes. Animals that survive infection might have hoof lesions. They'll see really deep lines on the hoof walls, and those are called fever lines for people that have horses and cattle and stuff. You'll see the fever lines develop sometimes. And so they're two distinct different groups of diseases in terms of one's a virus, and CWD, chronic wasting disease, is a prion. And so method of transmission with EHD and blue tongue is through a biting midge. And so some years we'll actually see outbreaks of EHD and blue tongue virus, or hemorrhagic disease in general. And those are years where it's prime for the midge to, have habitat, and then, if it bites an infected animal, then it spreads it to another animal and continues the cycle. In terms of animals can survive EHD and blue tongue.
Right.
They might be impaired for a little while depending on how aggressive it got and where the lesions were. It can cause hemorrhage in the lungs, and it can cause lesions in their rumen and things like that. So, they might be unthrifty for a little while. They, might always be unthrifty after recovering from hemorrhagic disease. But, they can also succumb to the disease too. Here in the South, it's not. There's groups of animals that, because they've kind of, co-adapted, it's been here for a while. There's animals that are somewhat more resistant to it. The further you go up north, the less resistant they are, and the more animals die than actually recover from it. So.
Yeah, I've heard that you once an animal has it, if it survives it, it creates immunity maybe more to it and can survive. So, but just don't get those confused. CWD and EHD are two different things. Yeah. CWD, we don't have it right now, and we hope that we never have it, and that's why we're taking these steps and knocking on wood, exactly, taking these steps to try to keep it out of the Tennessee and just educate the folks about it. How many states have it?
There's 25 states, and I think it's up to 3 or 4 provinces.
So they've been confirmed. I know there's a section in that state, not the whole state, but probably a section or two in that state have confirmed
and that's
CWD.
Both in the wild as well as in captive facilities.
Okay. All right. And just this year, the new import restrictions this year for anyone hunting out of state is that you have to take the steps to clean the deer and do all the import restriction steps that you'd have to do if the state had CWD. All states are restricted.
All states are restricted now. Up until this year, basically what we would do is any state that had detected CWD, we would put them on a list of banned products.
Right.
Deer had to be deboned. You could only bring in the meat. You could only bring in a clean skull, clean teeth, things like that. This year, our commission said, well, let's just make that ban for all states, because we're continuing to see new states each year are detecting it, and so the disease has been really spreading out for the last 15, 20 years. CWD has been around for a long time. Colorado back in the 1950s is where it was first really diagnosed, I think. It wasn't until about 2001 or 2 that we started to see it east of the Mississippi, and Wisconsin was first one of those first states where they found it. So the state Fish and Wildlife agencies have really gotten a lot more concerned about it, and it's been spreading for a number of years now. And so we're really trying in Tennessee to do all we can to prevent CWD from coming into the state.
Right.
And then we are also working on a plan right now, what we're calling a CWD response plan, that really focuses on if we do detect it, if we do get CWD in this state, then what do we do then? How do we respond? We've got a number of neighboring states that have found themselves in that situation, and
recently Mississippi was the last
Mississippi was the last one, and it's it's always this thing where, oh no, what are we going to do? And it can be, it can really be a manpower drainage. There's a lot of money that's involved in terms of trying to fight the disease and manage it. So we put together a response plan that really looks at, if we do get a detection, we hope we don't, but if we do, then this is how we're going to respond. We're going to look at surveillance in terms of trying to make sure that we detect it as early as we can. So that if the earlier we can detect it, the better opportunity and chance we'll have of actually managing it effectively and containing it.
For that early detection, are we coordinating like check stations and sampling and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, check stations and working with taxidermists and processors to get samples. We're coming up with a sampling strategy that's based on looking at target animals in terms of their age and sex. Older animals, older bucks are more valuable to get in terms of they may be more likely to have contracted the disease. So looking at that from that perspective to really increase the chances of us detecting it if we do have it. So surveillance to do early detection. If we do get a detection, then we'd want to put into place a containment strategy. How do we monitor that disease in that area and minimize its chances of spreading outside of that area? And then the last part of the plan is really looking at the communications part. Make sure that one of the issues with CWD is making sure that hunters, especially hunters that go out of state to hunt in an area where CWD might already exist, they need to know, number one, that CWD might be in that area, and they also need to know what to do if they actually harvest an animal or planning to bring that animal back to Tennessee. So we want to focus on that communication strategy as well.
And that's what page 30 in the hunting guide is all about. It's telling the hunters, you guys out there, that this is what you need to make sure you do, the steps to take, not to bring it back into Tennessee. And it's not just for the hunters, though. It's for everybody. I mean, we want to educate everybody about this and get the word out. You mentioned, while you were talking about the surveillance and the steps we're going to take and the response plan, I got to thinking about if we do get it. What if a human ingests a deer that's found positive? Can it affect humans?
Right now, it's not known to. The centers, and I maybe let Dan take this one as well here.
Because if you want to go for it,
trouble here.
I'll answer it if you want me to.
There are right now. There's no human health implications known for CWD, but the Centers for Disease Control suggests that if you're hunting an area where CWD is known to exist, especially in some of these endemic areas, CWD, if you harvest a deer, you need to get that animal tested, right? Wait for the results, and if it does test positive, then they recommend, and we would recommend, that you not consume that animal. We don't know of any implications, but that's not to say that it couldn't happen. So, you want to take that, Dan, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to explain it is that there are other prion diseases that I didn't mention before, such as mad cow disease, that are infectious to people. There's conflicting research at this point in time because it's really hard to figure out without using an actual human. You're using a human proxy like macaques or things like that.
Right.
Whenever you're doing these studies for determining if it's what we call zoonotic and can be transmissible to people, the reality is probably shouldn't eat anything from an animal that's diseased for any reason, whether it's CWD or anything.
Right.
And that's just for your own safety, because do you want to be the first person that confirms that it is positive, that you can get the disease? And that's the decision everybody kind of has to make for themselves if they do harvest a positive animal in another state. So
definitely don't want to be that experiment, I don't think.
Yeah.
just because of what it does to the deer, it could do to you. I mean, you just think about it.
There is a human version of it called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, it causes pretty much the similar clinical signs that it does in animals. And so it's one of those things where, if people always ask, would you take the risk? And it's like, me personally, no, I would not.
Yeah, our recommendation to hunters is if you're hunting in an area where you know CWD exists and you get an animal, to go ahead and get that animal tested so that you can be sure that you're not eating an animal that might be infected with CWD.
Okay. And those tests, is there a field test for this? Is there a quick and easy test for the hunter, or do they have to submit it? And
it has to be submitted. Yeah, so it's not any quick and easy. But the states that have it that are doing testing, it's usually a 1 to 2 week turnaround time in terms of getting your results back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And depending on, there are some states that'll actually, like Colorado, as a hunter, you can pay for the test, and a lot of times you get your results back within the same week while you're potentially even still out there with your hunting party. So don't quote me on that, because it changes from year to year with test availability. But there is research into trying to make a more like rapid test, like animal side, but what the actual practical implications of that will be in the future are yet to be known.
Okay. Well, I think we've hit most of the questions. There's a few coming in from Facebook. Do restrictions apply to hogs? And that's a good question. This disease only affects cervids. Can you explain that it doesn't affect, say, a hog? And tell them what a cervid is.
Well, cervids would be, in Tennessee, it would be white-tailed deer and elk.
Mm-hmm.
Other cervid species would be any of the other deer species that exist in the United States, whether it's mule deer out west or black-tailed deer out west. Moose also are a cervid species. Hogs actually can ingest the prion, and then it comes out the other end. And there is some indication that pigs can actually become infected with the disease too. But the implications of that in wild hogs at this point in time aren't very well understood, because it's all been domestic pigs that the research has been done in. So, So kind of the jury's still kind of out on how to handle all that kind of stuff. If you're kind of in some states that have both CWD and wild hogs, and you're hunting in an area where there's CWD, you might want to take caution with because there's not really a test for it in hogs that per se, like there is.
Right.
Yeah, I think the answer to the question is there are not restrictions on bringing back hog carcasses, things like that. So that does not apply. But if you are in an area like that, you might want to be careful about it.
Yeah, be careful. A few more coming in. Is CWD curable? Is it preventable? Can it be eliminated? And I think that's all the questions that scientists and veterinarians like yourself and biologists are trying to figure out.
And I mean, is it curable? No. At this point in time, there's no known cure for it. Preventable, they have looked at vaccines, and the reality is using vaccines in wild animals, it's really hard to administer in terms of like on a broad scale. So you're never going to get 100% vaccinated, anyways. The vaccine trials have actually shown with the one vaccine they were looking at, that the animals actually became more susceptible to CWD after being vaccinated.
Wow.
So, and so there's mixed reviews. There's been a couple other research projects on vaccines that they just didn't work. And so, some of those implications long term are not necessarily a good thing for, cost and expense. You look at other wildlife programs where there is success with vaccines, and it's not really applicable to this particular class of disease agent. And can it be eliminated? The reality is that's why you want to prevent it from coming in, because it's almost like indefinitely in the landscape once it's there. And there's actually certain types of soil, once it binds to it, makes it more infectious, and it doesn't get washed away. So that's why, if you can prevent it from getting established in a population in an area, that's your best, your best treatment, your best cure, your best whatever you want to say about it. Prevention, can't say it enough. But the reality is there's been long-term studies, and I think it goes out as 15 years, where animals are still becoming infected after being placed in pens that had CWD positive animals in it.
Right.
Yeah, I think just on the prevention side of things, that's really been our strategy in Tennessee. We've been fortunate and are fortunate that we do not allow for private deer farms in Tennessee. We've never had that. It's been in the law that you cannot bring a deer in from out of state, a live deer from out of state, and put it into a farm situation or behind high fence. And I think that's helped us a lot in terms of a prevention strategy of not opening up the door for that to happen. Because I think a lot of states, that's kind of where CWD started, was from a private deer farm or situation where they had private deer that were brought in from another state, kind of thing like that. So our agency has really implemented about all the prevention strategies that we know that we can do to minimize the risk of CWD being brought in from out of the state. We're also working with the Department of Agriculture to help to minimize the possibilities from other captive cervid facilities as well.
Okay, cool.
So working on that, that's the best prevention that we can do. And then beyond that, if we ever do detect it, identify it, then it becomes from a prevention strategy to a containment strategy and managing the disease, that kind of thing.
It's scary. We don't want it.
Don't get too scared about it.
No, we're not too scared, but we don't want it. And if you follow these import restrictions, and I want to hit on those before we leave. There's another question that came in. We'll try to get that answered on Facebook and after the show. But I want to hit on the restrictions so we haven't mentioned them, what they are exactly. So this year, if you hunt out of state, out of Tennessee, and you bring your animal back, the meat has to be removed from the bone. Meat with all bones removed. Antlers attached to skull. Antlers attached to clean skull plates can be brought back, or a clean skull with no meat or tissue attached. Clean teeth, which have no meat or tissue attached. Finished antler products and taxidermy can be brought back. Tan hides and other tan products. So that's the restrictions, and that's what we want the hunters to focus on, is to make sure you remember these 5 things when you hunt out of state. And thanks for watching today. Thanks for sending your questions. It's all good questions, and we hope y'all have benefited from this show. And I thank you guys for being with me.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Anything else you want to add before we leave?
Happy hunting this fall.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's right around the corner. So once again, thank you all, and we'll see you next time on Tennessee WildCast.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.